What's going on, guys? It's SMG here, and today I've got something completely different for you. I want to take a real deep dive into some statistics, into some kind of really in-depth look at why certain weapons aren't being used, why I think they should be being used. I'd like to make this a weekly series, so if you do enjoy it, make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know kind of what you want to see going forward, what stats you want to have a dive into. I really enjoy this kind of stuff, so do let me know and I'll make sure to incorporate it in future episodes. So today what we're going to look at is the difference between the Modern Warfare MP5 and the Cold War MP5, and why people aren't using the Cold War MP5 despite that it's better in almost every aspect, especially in terms of time to kill and damage per second. It's head and shoulders above the Modern Warfare MP5, so I don't really understand why people aren't using it. I have a couple of theories which I'll go over at the end, so let's jump into this. So first off, if you look here, we have the base damage for each weapon. On top we have the Modern Warfare MP5, and on the bottom we have the Cold War MP5. And you can see that from base damage levels, the Modern Warfare MP5 actually takes it, only by a couple here and there, but it does take it nonetheless, especially kind of in the head shot area, and on the limbs you're going to be doing a bit more damage. In the chest and stomach, where the majority of players' shots are going to be landing, there isn't too much difference. And so you're looking at this and you're seeing, well, it's not going to make much difference which one you use, right? You know, the Modern Warfare one looks like the better choice, and you're not wrong there. But it's when you kind of take the time to look at the time to kill and the damage per second stats that you're really going to see a difference, and that's what really counts here. Now this is the damage per second for both the Modern Warfare MP5 and the Cold War one. You can see that for the most part the Cold War one is leading. It starts off kind of just below 475 all the way up into around 9 meters, in which case you see the first drop off that comes with damage. So down here is the distance from the target in meters, and this is your damage per second. And the Modern Warfare one does pretty much the same, except you get this slight higher level of damage for a slightly longer distance. It's about 9.5 meters before you see that first initial drop. And so you could argue that kind of for this first initial drop, where you're going to be taking a lot of gunfights in at 9.5, 10 meters, it might be worth using the Modern Warfare MP5 just to have that little bit of extra damage with the range. But realistically, when you're moving about so much in gunfights, how often are you going to kind of stay within that half a meter? You're going to be going kind of, you know, 3 or 4 meters either way, where you're going to have that big drop off range regardless. And you see it again down here. The Cold War MP5 drops off soonest, even though it has the higher damage per second. And the MP5 from Modern Warfare actually follows suit a little bit later, about 2.5 meters later. But once again, once you're at this range, it doesn't really matter what you're hitting shots with. The distance is such a hindering factor when it comes to SMGs, that this kind of distance and difference in distance, that's a mouthful, isn't really going to make a massive amount of distance to your gunfights. And you have to think about it, how often do you come up against somebody at this distance with an MP5 and kind of get out of there by the skin of your teeth? It's not going to make a huge amount of distance. And honestly, you may look at that and think, you know, it might still be worth it, you know, if that little bit extra couple of meters here gives you the ability to come out of a gunfight with the skin of your teeth, it might be worth it. But wait until you see the actual time to kill, because time to kill rules supreme in Call of Duty, in Warzone. The physical time it takes to down an enemy, to kill them, that's what determines whether or not a gun is good. That's what makes guns overpowered. You know, the MAC-10 has an extremely fast time to kill by that rapid rate of fire. I know they kind of nerfed the headshot multiplier, but still, that gives it a massive advantage. So if we flick over to the time to kill, and so here you'll see that once again, Modern Warfare MP5 in blue, Cold War in green. The Cold War MP5 has a far shorter time to kill, which is what you're looking for in a gun, like ridiculously so. So let's take it at 4 meters. You're looking at around 0.2225, something like that, and you're heading up towards 0.3 for the Modern Warfare MP5. Now, in terms of seconds, that's not a lot kind of in real world, but how often do you look at your health bar after a gunfight and see you hanging on by just a smidgen, like just that tiniest bit of health? And that's the sort of thing that makes the difference in terms of, you know, the time to kill, that you get that final bullet into your opponent before they get it into you. Similarly here, you see a massive jump in time to kill once you hit around 9.5 meters, whereas the Cold War MP5 is continuing on a far more steady gradient until you hit 16 meters. That's invaluable when it comes to it. The fact that you can keep your time to kill so low over these kind of close range engagements where you're going to be using this gun the most, that's what you want from an SMG. And I couldn't wrap my head around why people weren't using it. It seemed illogical to me that people wouldn't be using the Cold War MP5 when it is so much faster to kill than the Modern Warfare MP5. And I played with it a fair bit in Warzone, in Rebirth Island, and it feels stronger, it feels like it hits harder, it gets the job done quicker. And then there was still something off about it, and I couldn't figure out what that was. Until I looked at the recoil patterns. Whenever I seemed to shoot with the Cold War MP5, something just really didn't feel right. And so this is the Modern Warfare MP5 that you'll see. You'll see the recoil pattern. Most of you are used to it. Most of you kind of adjust for that recoil pattern now without even realising it. And that's the big point to take away here. So here's the Modern Warfare one. And here's the Cold War one. Now you see that it shoots directly up and then stops kind of in this area where the bullets begin to cluster. It's very, very much like the Growl's recoil was pre-nerf months and months ago, almost a year ago now. Whereas the MP5 from Modern Warfare, you'll see it's the much more familiar kind of up and then to the right pattern that most of you will adjust for without really realising. And now why this is important is that you've developed that muscle memory, you've put hours and hours into this game. The MP5 has been the standalone close range engagement gun, long standing that is. Obviously you have the odd competitor here and there, the fire shotguns are the obvious ones here, but for most people the MP5 has been the go-to choice, and so you've got used to controlling that recoil. And so when you pick up another gun, no matter how well it fries, with the exception of something like the Mac 10 that's OP, the Cold War MP5 feels off, the movement feels off, you don't feel like you're as comfortable as you should be, and that is just practice. I've seen a lot of very, very good players say they just can't get used to the Cold War MP5, and I think the biggest reason for that is that recoil pattern. Is if you're adjusting because you expect the gun to go kind of up and then right, and it doesn't, that's when it becomes an issue. The recoil is very, very easy to control. Like, once you've got that in your head that it's literally just holding the thumbstick down the tiniest bit, the gun is unbeatable. And now I know some of you are probably thinking, why haven't you talked about the Mac 10 too much? One, because I believe it's overpowered and it needs another nerf, and two, people are still using the pre-nerf Mac 10. There is a blueprint that I'm not going to talk about, I'll put a link in the description to JGod's video where he covers it, that allows you to use the pre-nerf Mac 10. I don't know if they did it on purpose, I'd like to think they didn't, because that makes it pay to win, but it lets you use the pre-nerf one. Why wouldn't you if you could afford it? The Mac 10's a very, very good gun. It's almost taken kind of like the damage and the effectiveness from the MP5, the fire rate of the Fennec, the lack of recoil from the Growl almost, and it's just an unbeatable SMG. I personally am not a fan of it. I will rock an MP5 no matter which one it is from which game. I have used the Mac 10 a fair bit. I don't know, something about it feels off. The big mag size really does help people look like gods, helps them shred teams like they're nothing, especially with the DMR coupled with it, which still has not had the nerf it deserves, along with the Type 63. I really hope we see that soon, because this Cold War MP5 could be really, really dominant, and I think there's some really good SMGs kind of waiting in the wings almost from Cold War that could also have a really good shot of being some solid choices, maybe not the meta, but some really, really good choices. And that's where I'm going to leave it today. If you have enjoyed the video, I know this was a bit different, let me know. I'd love to do more of these, but only if you guys want to see them. So let me know in the comments down below. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you later. Bye.